Hi guys, it's the Island Girl, and I'm back with another one for you today. And today I am checking out why do the British look down on Americans. So that's one is why do the British look down on Americans? Now I'm intrigued. I really want to hear what this is all about and why is that if that's the case or if it's not so. So we're going to get right into this video. If you're new to my channel, it's the first time here, come on in, wrap back with a smile on your face and enjoy. So I'm a regular schmegular day one, sweetie pie, sweetie poos, come on in, wrap back, put a smile on your face and enjoy. Let's get into this video. Here we go now.
All right.
How do you feel the British perceive Americans?
I feel like there's quite a lot of, I hate to say it, but mockery involved.
I think a lot of people think Americans are extreme.
Do you think that the British think that they're better than Americans?
I think some do, yeah.
There's a lot to make fun of, I think.
Interesting.
We're also fantastic at queuing as well. That's another great thing
That's
about us.
true.
Rubbing me the wrong way because they're too extra. It doesn't seem like it's genuine.
Today, I'm in London to get to the bottom of a very important question. For as long as I can remember, I have had the sense that the British look down on Americans. This is a generalization, and therefore doesn't apply to everyone, but it's a strong enough trend that I felt I needed to investigate this further. Here's a quote from Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, that perfectly captures the feeling that I have about this. With some, the anti-American sentiment ran very hot. I was reminded of my childhood, when people warned me all the time about Americans. Too loud, too rich, too happy, too confident, too direct, too honest.
Interesting.
I'm very curious what people are going to have to say about this. I have a feeling I'm onto something, okay? So, having said that, let's start talking to some people.
That makes 2 of us. I am curious because I've always heard that you guys look down on Americans.
Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know if that's
Not that easy
it.
today, huh?
I haven't had any
If I could just get a moment.
bad strides so far.
Too much
We're
time.
off to a very
With my
slow start.
interaction
That's okay. Let's just change
with
up
my
the
YouTube
spot.
channel,
I'm feeling
so-
like there's enough projections in that 100-meter radius.
You know, I always feel really terrible that everyone's first attitude is, "Oh, you're from America." Right?
yeah.
You know, which is always a bit. You always feel a bit bad about that. Because I'm not entirely sure why we still do that, but you know. It's,
How do you feel perceived as Americans by the British here in London?
A big, stupid, bellowing oaf. Yeah, genuinely. I always feel like I have to apologize for being Americans. Like, I know my accent's the worst thing you'll hear today, but can I just order a coffee?
My experience, I feel like, has been a little bit different. I think that might be somewhat informed by the fact that I'm a student here.
Okay.
At first, there was a bit of a learning curve. Like, when I would speak loudly on the tube, I would kind of get looks, and people would tell me, like, you're being American. Like, can you maybe not?
There's definitely sort of a sense that there is a lot of difficult things going on in America, and that America potentially could be quite a difficult place to live, especially if you're of color or from the Middle East.
I have to admit, the inspiration to make this video came when I moved to Europe. As I've explored in previous videos on this channel, many Europeans have mixed to negative views of Americans as dumb and uncultured. But to my surprise, the same goes for the British. I've come to realize that the only people that see the British as intelligent and sophisticated are the Americans. Many Europeans, like the Portuguese or the Spanish, see a very different reality. The British that go off on holiday to get extremely drunk and break things. The British that are isolationist with Brexit. The British that don't learn foreign languages, that stick to their native tongue. Wait a second, I thought to myself. That's what Americans do. Other people do this as well?
How dare they copy us?
I kid, of course. Still, it does.
It kind of makes sense when he said it. Other American does this too. It's not just an American. Jamaican does this too. It's not just Dominicans, Australians. Everybody, every country has their own thing. They like to speak in their own dialect. They like to do what they are used to within their country. So it's not necessarily, when you think about it now, looking down, it's just that they like the way of life, the way they like the way of life in their country. It's as simple as that. And then a majority of people within whichever country you are is used to that. And that is, to me, is just fine.
I just feel like the Brits act like the Americans of Europe, but I am certain that is not something that they'd like to hear said about them. I mean, no offense. I am American after all. Does that not prove my point, though? No one wants to stoop to the level of Americans. I felt I had to get my answers directly from the source. My perception is that the UK is 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot like in the Americas. It feels like it should be in the middle of the Atlantic. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a pretty conclusive idea. Yeah, I think that's definitely true because a lot of people wouldn't even class England as being in Europe. You know, even in England, when you talk about going to Europe, no one ever thinks you mean Doncaster. They always think you mean Germany. You do get some perception that everyone's some sort of like a Valley girl accent or something like that, and I think that annoys people quite a lot. But then again, it's the same way that English people are often perceived as all sort of being from London. The American dream, making yourself better and being seen to be self-improving, and it's a lot about earning money and being the best you can and going to the gym and all these kind of things.
Do you think that's true? Are you saying it's positive or negative?
I think it's a positive thing for Americans, but I think the way it's perceived is often everyone goes, "Oh, get out of my face," you know, because no one likes to enjoy someone else's success, at least in England anyway. I think in America it's probably very different. Oh great, you got a promotion. Fucking bastard, you know. I think
the identity of being American is like such a thing.
Right.
That I don't think other places have that as much.
I don't think people are necessarily dumb, and I don't think it's a question of being dumb. I think it's just that there's this idea of like, being the best. To think that like people in America, depending on where you're born, you can have access to care or not, it's frightening. And I don't know how you can speak about being the best when you can't even make sure that everybody's like taken care of. Are you treating everyone the same way in America? No, not everyone is treated the same way, just like not everyone is treated the same way in Europe.
Man, she just hit some nail on the head a while ago. I'm telling you, she's spitting facts. She's spitting fire, because I'm like, it is so true. Everything that she just said is spot on, and I love it. Straight up, point blank. Wow.
Having been to America a lot, they often ask, obviously as a joke, but just like, do you know the royal family or anything like that?
So do you feel that generally, the big generalization, there's mockery towards the Americans and Americans towards the British is more like cute. We think you're cute.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
How do you feel about Americans thinking you're cute?
Well, it can be taken as a compliment, obviously, but if they think that we're like, as a country, not really a force to be reckoned with, then just because we do all these like things that date back to long before the US was established, it's not really relevant that they can mock us for that.
Is it condescending, would you say?
A little bit.
Or ignorant?
More ignorant. It doesn't like hurt me.
How do you feel Americans perceive the British, first of all?
They kind of look down on us.
You feel that?
I feel like Americans think like they're on top of everything, and there's always competition between the two.
So do you feel like the British have a chip on their shoulder a little bit because of that?
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think the British are better at than Americans?
Yeah, polite, really.
More polite?
Yeah. More talkative, more helpful.
More helpful? The British are more helpful?
Yeah, than Americans. But Americans are nice, they're funny, got good music.
Got good music, okay. Well, the British have good music too, man.
Americans are taking over the music scene.
But I mean, come on, there's a lot of great British music. So here's the thing that I think is going on here. We are not the same.
That is interesting that he said that they are nice. Well, it's kind of a balance between the two when you think about it, because let me pull that back in. What he said about them feeling like they're better than others, American feeling, I agree to that. Because a lot of Americans or America feel like it's better than any other country in the world. You understand? And it goes back to the point that she made earlier, saying, for such a number one country, so-called number one country, why is it not taking care of its people? So it's a give and take when you look at it.
The Brits and the Americans. But we sure have a lot of similarities. Compare us to the Japanese or to Native Americans or to Ethiopians, and the differences between Americans and the British seems relatively small. We're like blood siblings in the village that is the globe. So here's what all of this started to make me think of. There's a concept in psychoanalysis. I'm going to read you the definition, but it's called the narcissism of small differences. This comes from Freud. The narcissism of small differences is the idea that the more a relationship or community shares commonalities, the more likely the people in it are to engage in interpersonal feuds and mutual ridicule because of hypersensitivity to minor differences perceived in each other. We see this all over the world, between the Argentinians and the Chileans, for example, between the French and the Belgians. And indeed, I think this is what is happening between the Brits and the Americans. But at the end of the day, I feel like we make the little things that make us different much bigger than they really are.
The way that we speak and the words that we use.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about this, weren't we?
Yeah.
About
we were
certain
talking
words.
about things like autumn versus fall. And it's like that's often something that people like bring up, and for some, well, it's because it's a simpler word, and it's like, oh, fall, American.
You guys don't say
classic.
fall.
No, we don't say fall. We
Oh,
say
interesting.
Autumn.
Okay.
So this is autumn. Not fall.
But you can say autumn as well. All right, before we go any further, I want to quickly thank the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp.
I gotta say this because I love your accent. It's just like I always say, if you check all of my videos, I love your guys' accent. It just tickled my fancy. There's just something about it. The way it sounds coming out, man, it just sounds good. It sounds amazing to me. It just sounds amazing. That's just me. It's so pretty. It's so beautiful. And we don't say fall in Jamaica either. We say autumn. So here you go again. So like he said, it's the little differences that people really tend to take and make it into a bigger thing. But that's just my 2 cents.
Personally, when I come to the UK, I have the impression that I've come halfway across the Atlantic. I'm not just off the coast of continental Europe. And by that I mean, culturally, it feels so much more similar to the life that I had in the US. The convenience of life, the speed, the capitalism, the language.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's like got the same sort of core values. I'm not necessarily a big Christian person at all, but we all come from this like Christian-based countries. America and Australia are English. There's some things that happen in history, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all the same group of people in that regard.
Culturally influenced.
Culturally influenced by the same group. So I personally don't see many differences at all.
I mean, I've got wonderful American friends who I adore. So that question for me is a difficult one because I think they're great, they're fantastic. Yeah. I think the differences in the way our language is, in the way we use different words, that's where there's a difference.
So pretty minor.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes some of the British media or the portion of the British population that looks down on Americans, is it a way to deflect some of the issues that exist here? Could that be said of all societies?
Yeah, you can say that of all societies, but you can also say that about the media. They're always distracting, aren't they, from topics, whatever it is.
America's seen as very alpha male. If you think about it in terms of masculine and feminine, there's an alpha maleness to Americans. And it's maybe just the way they speak, the accent, but you don't really have that sense of Britain. I think there's a stereotype of the repressed male, that soft-spoken.
Considering we're like right on the edge of Europe, we have more in common with America in many ways than we do with the rest of Europe, which in theory is where we should be more aligned. And I think there's sort of something that can feel sort of slightly odd about that, you know, like with the whole Brexit thing, breaking away more from where we're most closely connected to and sort of being in a situation where, you know, we're going to end up with chlorinated chicken instead.
There's this tendency to think of Americans as just, you know, they're simplistic, really.
Are you like annoyed by the Americans here in
sometimes
I wouldn't say
depends how they are.
Now the interesting thing is I love to drag the US through the mud and criticize it for all the things that I think it deserves criticism for, but the second the Brits start criticizing me or the US, you have nothing to say. Kind of like I can criticize where I grew up, but you aren't allowed to. And the British, in my opinion, are doing their version of the same thing, criticizing themselves to no end, but no one wants it.
It's interesting that he said that because that's basically how it is. It's like, okay, I can call myself dark, beautiful, and fancy. But if you, another person who doesn't look like me, say, oh, you're dark, beautiful, and fancy, people tend to be upset or feel offended. It's potato. It's like a garage. It's crazy how these little differences, like I said before, make people look at things differently. And I like their bluntness and honesty in what they are saying, because I really think that what they're saying, I agree with it 100%.
It's an outside opinion. Maybe we all do this. I think we all do this. It's like pointing at someone else's flooding house when your own house is on fire.
Yep.
So I lived in America for 6 years. I lived in California, Alabama, and Oklahoma for 3 years. Everyone hears my accent.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, where in America are you from? I'm like, bro, I'm actually from Australia, but then they give me their little opinions on American stuff. So I've actually had to play defense a couple times since I've been out here.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. I'm so serious. They talk about guns or they talk about this, but they don't have like a very good understanding, not just English people, this is people around the world, even in Australia, of the history of America and why those things became what they were. People trying to, throw rocks and then hide their hands.
Yeah.
They don't want the blame to be on them. So it's easy to put it on the big superpower that is on everyone's TV.
My perception is I don't consider Americans necessarily lesser in terms of like lifestyle, culture, per se. I just think it's a bit more apparent than it is in the UK, but the UK is just as problematic.
There's always sort of a sense in the past that like America was sort of, 2 decades ahead of what was happening in this country. There is a sense that we're getting closer in a time frame.
I would say younger generations tend to be a bit more, and the only word I can think of it is shameful of the heritage. I think it's a lot of things from like colonialization and things like that. There tends to be a bit more shame around it.
We're a small island, right? So we've got a small island mentality, but because we've got a small island mentality, we've got to overcome it by kind of that impression that we're the best. And I think that's changing, though. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How are Americans perceiving the British?
My answer to that is there is a power dynamic going on. And for better or for worse, the US is much more of a world superpower right now. So I don't think the US feels threatened necessarily, like competitive with Great Britain. Because of that, I think there's kind of like they're cute. You know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond and sophisticated and
Use words like autumn.
Exactly. But I also think that there's also a major degree of ignorance. Like the US is so self-involved. We're not even paying attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world. So there's not even enough to form an opinion. Now this video was definitely supposed to be in good fun. I harbor no ill will towards the British. I find our rivalries as human beings across cultures, across nations, to be comical and interesting. It's like an insight into human psychology. And despite all of the, criticizing going on here, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to express my appreciation for a few things that I think the British do better than Americans. Your healthcare system, for one. Also, the Premier League. They say football was invented in England, and if that is true, as someone with Argentinian background, I can only thank you. I also have to thank you for your incredible music. What a contribution to our collective heritage. It is a foreign idea to me to have a royal family, but I respect the commitment to tradition.
I did move here the week that the Queen died. So it was really interesting to see. I think my first impression of like the British as a public was that of like mourning for their queen, the 14-hour long line to go see her lying in state.
Wow.
So I think it was a little bit of a shock. This might sound silly, but how procedural the British can be. I noticed that tends to be like every British person I've met tends to be very procedural, as opposed to Americans, I think are a little bit more, like, dare I say, free-spirited or individualistic. So, I mean, I think that's not to say that one is better than the other.
And as a final note, we are obviously a world of individuals. And so stereotypes never fully work. Still, I find it's so fascinating to explore the stereotypes and cliches that we have for one another. Not always, but often there is some sort of basis of truth there. Or else they wouldn't spread and persist as they do. Anyway, having said all of that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please consider liking it, which tells the algorithms to share this with more people.
I'm telling you, I really enjoy this video. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy this video so much because at the end of the day, like they put it, it's just little things that makes a difference. Little things that you can nitpick, which is not necessarily need nitpicking because every country has difference. They have their differences. Period, point blank. They just have their differences. And it's not for me to dislike and for them to dislike mine. You understand what I mean? Because for me, I love your guys' accent. I cannot get enough of it. It's just so beautiful. It tickles my fancy. And I'm not pretending or fluffing you guys up because I've been saying this. If you check all my videos coming in, looking into the UK, I just love it. The lady talking, and I'm telling you, that gentleman, and I'm like, that accent just, oh, baby. I love it. only that, I love your music. I've heard about your guys' chocolate. I want to try all of those stuff. You understand what I mean? And because I want to compare it. And the way that you guys handle yourself, your politeness. Like I said, I've been doing this on my channel and I've never really have any issues at all. Yes, there may be a little few facey comment in the comment section, but I let that roll off my back like how water roll off the back of a duck. Stuff like that doesn't faze me. It's a country that I want to visit, that somewhere I'm looking into living. You understand? So here it's they're cocky, full of themselves. And I can understand that that would be there as well. You understand? So it's not, I know it's not all picture perfect, but for me, I love what I see. You understand? And it is what it is. That's how your island girl feel. Thank you guys for watching. Very interesting video. Love you guys. Hope you guys let me know in the comment section what you think. Period, point blank. Go in the comment section, tell me what you'd like me to react to next because it will be done. Not only that, give this video a big thumbs up, guys. Please, I'm begging you. It helps the algorithm to push the video out. You know, if you'd like to watch the video undisturbed, the link for that video will be in the description below underneath this video on my channel. Okay, guys? Not only that, there's a PO box in the description section if you like to send anything our way. We'd truly appreciate it. There's a membership button on the channel. So come on and wrap back. Put a smiling face and continue to enjoy life. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys in another video. Ta-ta. Bye-bye.